a day closer to on or behind the lines.
Clocks run out. Time's up.
Wind is blowing cold and dark. On the road and no way out. Broken hearts, a smoking gun. On the run. On the run.
What the? I think it's Wednesday night. It's Aftermath FM. I think my name is Jimmy. Well, we barely made it by the skin of our teeth. We're going to be talking about Psychotronics.
Wake up in the morning, wonder why I'm feeling so down.
We're going to be talking about Royal Reich.
When all I get is pushed around. There's talk around town, you made up your mind.
Did you know there was something called the U.S. Psychotronics Association? List of names included. Unbelievable. Into the microcosms on the air.
It's gonna be you, it's gonna be me. A fight to the finish. That's the only way it's gonna be.
Thanks for joining us, Clyde Lewis listeners. TalkStream Live. Let's get this thing started.
Every day, trying to steal the race. Every time I turn around, someone tries to take my place. There's talk around town that you made up your mind. You're really gonna let me go. But if you think it's that easy, you better think twice. I got something you ought to know. It's gonna be a fight to the finish.
I grew up in my neighborhood. We didn't have a lot of diversity in my neighborhood. Diversity is always people's talking about it. And we didn't have it. You know, my neighborhood was poor black, poor white. That was our neighborhood, you know. So I didn't feel any white privilege. I know some people had it, man, you know. I knew some motherfuckers with sweaters. But I was 2 tank tops in the winter, okay? And I just didn't feel it, you know? I wish I'd have had some white privilege, dude. Sign me up. But I didn't have it, man. It was just poor black kids, poor white kids, man. And my poor black friends would always be like, man, look what you did to us. And I'm like, dude, do you think I would do all that shit to y'all and then move right next door, bro? Now, we gonna split this plum or not, dog? We're in this together, man. It was hectic sometimes. Fighting with black kids is tough. I don't know if you ever fought a bunch of black dudes, but they win. They win, dude. Dude, I got jumped one time after a football game by 5 black dudes. I don't know if you ever fought 5 black dudes at night. Just imagine you're fighting 5 black dudes, right? Now close your eyes. Now how many black dudes are you fighting? As many as your imagination can hold. And white kids are horrible too, man. It was just in poverty. It's just that's what's going on, man. And if you're a black guy and you feel like that's racially insensitive, then imagine you're fighting 5 white dudes in a cloud. Like, damn, this cloud is aggressive and accurate.
Do you feel you have white privilege?
Epic Journeyman. Are you that?
I am here.
Jesus. I'm hanging by a thread over here. Barely made it. Hold on. Almost got hit in the face with a surfboard. Watch out. Jesus. Wish that guy would have had a leash on. He almost got hit. Almost took me out. Anyway, every time you come in, you know, I'm watching the video from the original episode or the original series Hawaii Five-0 with the original cast, and right when you come in is when the board shoots off the wave. I have to dodge it every day, and I'll have to dodge it I think even more tomorrow or the next day when you send that VR apparatus, because we are going to be venturing into virtual reality here on Into the Microcosm very shortly.
Indeed.
Yeah, man. We're going to be doing it live right here. Maybe sooner than we even think. Who knows how soon. I'm excited, though. Did you get a hold of Rock and Rio to get his address?
I have not. I was trying to recover my headset. My other headset that is on the Big Island. My coworker had it. He was supposed to come this week. He didn't come, so I wait for him to get over here first. But yeah, it's going to be cool because we'll all have headsets and be able to meet up in the VR world.
Well,
right?
will you be able to set us up a meeting place so people can who are in VR can come join us over there, in there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the easiest one. I mean, they have a VR chat and they have a. I think big screen is a good one, just because you meet at the movie theater. We go watch a movie. You hang out in different theaters. You can choose the kind of theater it is. Go out in the lobby and hang out in the lobby, and there's like different booths and tables and stuff. And you see all like the movie theater entrances and
all right.
The snack bar and all that kind of stuff. I was in there last night. I swear to God, dude, I had to go back and try to find the guy. I swear I heard Monty on there last night. I know it wasn't him, but it was exactly his voice, man.
Monty Dean.
Yeah, Monty Dean. I was cruising through there and I heard this voice. I know that voice, right? Because you can hear people's conversations as you walk by tables and stuff, right? That are out in the lobby. So it's literally like a movie theater lobby. So you're walking in there and like I got Top Gun 3D playing on one screen, and I got what do you call it? Transformers on another one, and some other stuff. And so as I'm walking through, heading towards the snack bar, they have these little tables set up, and there's people talking at the table. They're talking about scotch and rum and different kinds of alcohol they've tried in different countries as they've gone on vacation, on holiday, of course they call it. These are all people from Scotland and from Australia, and everybody's got to me, an accent from somewhere other than America, right? So it caught my attention right away. Like, oh man, it's just sure sounded like Monty. I was just clicking to leave the room when I heard it, and I went back and looked for him. I couldn't find him.
Well, he was.
So I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask him. He might be listening right now.
He was gone like a rocket, man, because he moves quick. He's Australian, man, and he's got to move fast down there, especially right now. So so we're gonna lean into the virtual reality, ladies and gentlemen. We're not running scared. We're not going to sell our souls, but we may put on a headset or two and join you in virtual reality and see exactly what we can do with it. Forget the green screen, man. We're going 3D. You know what I'm saying? Third dimensional. You know what I mean? I mean, it's still, it's flat. It's not 3D, right? So we're not going to be floating in, 3D space. It'll still be.
Well, you are going to be floating in 3D space. We are.
But what about when we're broadcasting it now? It's going to
Well,
be.
when we're broadcasting it, yeah, people will just see a flat screen.
All right,
but yeah, unless they come over and join the room, then they can join. I think I'm surprised nobody's done this before. Like, was there some kind of complication with how many people you can host and still simulcast and that kind of thing? I don't think so. I think they do it on Twitch.
Well, why don't you give Zuckerberg a call and set it up so we can get as much as bandwidth as we need to make it fly, so we can help. We can help.
That's what I was
Sorry, go ahead. We'll just help him get some people over there in the metaverse. You know what I mean? We'll start promoting a concert over there, some virtual concert.
They have virtual concerts. You know, that's the thing. Like, I ended up staying up late last night trying to. I was going to ship it. I had it all ready to ship yesterday, but I didn't get a chance after work, right? And then today I meant to. And it turns out the post office closes at 4:00. I get off at 3:30. I'm like, what the hell? When did the post office start closing at 4:00? But the point is, I stayed up late last night trying to find what medium to choose, right? So I was going to the theater, checking out the big screen. I was going to these different places, and that seems to be the easiest one. I bring it up because it's the most the metaverse cartoony kind of world.
What we're talking about is concerts, though. You were about to tell us about a concert. So
there's
the thing is, the thing is I got a bunch of buddies here in the Bay Area. They're musicians. So now if I invite these musicians here into the studio and everybody's got a headset on, could I do a 3D concert of those musicians and myself playing music as a band in a theater in virtual reality?
You can, if you have a 3D camera. You need a 3D camera to do it, but if you have a 3D camera, that records VR, 360-degree video, you can at least do a 360-degree video. If you have a 3D camera, then you can do it actually where it's like it has depth too.
Crazy, man.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Like one of the things I recommend when you get the headset, there's a great white shark encounter that's really cool. Like, it's in VR where it's really high resolution. I mean, it's really good quality. The thing about these 3D videos, a lot of times, and these VR videos, like they have YouTube VR, for example, right? It's been going on since 2013 when they first started, not necessarily the channel YouTube VR, but these 360-degree videos and 3D videos. So not all of them are great quality. Right, some of them are really pixelated, and you're like, "Oh man, screw this stuff. I'm not messing around with this." Right, like for the Samsung Gear from way back when or something. But the new ones, they're really super, 8K ones or whatever. They are freaking phenomenal, and it's really convincing. So that's a good one to check out. One of sea snakes, because it's 3D, it works out really well too, because the shape of the sea snake swimming by looks like really works well for 3D, right, for VR.
Well, let's start getting into the subject matter for tonight. So we'll get back to you guys on the VR. Maybe it'll be sooner rather than later. Psychotronics, the United States Psychotronic Association, brought it up like 3-4 years ago on the air. No one had really heard about it at that point.
Kev Baker show. I called into that show that day. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, it's wide as it is deep. Okay, and it's just goes. I mean, there's all kinds of aspects to it, ladies and gentlemen. Some of it has to do with the nefarious activity of psychotronic concepts are talked about quite a bit in the alternative media. From targeted individuals, mind control, this type of thing, epic journeyman. So, but there's more to it than that. I mean, that's if you were drawing a circle and putting pie pieces in, that's just a slice of the pie. But it's the foundation of everything. In other words, it's really where it all comes from. Especially a lot of the ancient technologies may be based on precisely some of these ideas. So, what about the Psychotronic Association, man?
Well, I know they're from the 70s, from 1975, and every time we look them up, I'm always a little bit more surprised about them because they've been around this whole time. Right? It's not like they've been hiding anywhere. They've been here this whole time, and they started at a time when I was in the military in the 80s. I learned about psychotronic weapons, right? Not in the Navy, just as a course of talking to people who were working on that kind of thing as a weapon, RF weaponry, and then learning about it after I got out in 1985, right? And it was highly, highly, highly classified stuff. Like, you get in trouble for even you're looking over your shoulder. You know what I mean? It was like one of those things where you talk about it in whispers. You kind of look around the room, make sure everybody's cool you're talking to, that kind of thing. And it turns out here's this American Psychotronic Society that's been around talking about this stuff since since the mid 70s, you know, and it really goes back to it being used originally for a weapon. It's the first Havana syndrome stuff was 1972 Moscow embassy attack, where we had our embassy built in Moscow. We used local labor to build the embassy, right? And they put all these weapons inside the building. They suspect they tore that whole thing down and rebuilt the embassy, right? But a lot of people were getting affected by exactly what they describe as Havana syndrome now. And they thought, at first I thought it was people like across the street beaming weapons at them and stuff like that. I mean, it's all about beaming these things in their head, and using microwaves. But it turned out they suspect now that a lot of them were built into the building. They were like into the girders, into the structural, parts of the building where you couldn't see them. You know what I mean? But they were there. And so they used the excuse that they thought it was bugged, and that maybe they were beaming it from across the street and all that kind of thing. But anyway, that's 1972, and it made the news. Other people had talked about it back then. But yet every time it gets brought up or got brought up for the next 40 years, it was always like, oh, it's conspiracy theory stuff, it's crazy stuff. And yet here it is, plain as day, 1972. Here it is, plain as day, being talked about in 1975. And it's based on the technology, the works of people who've been working on that kind of stuff, like Royal Reich and Nikola Tesla and all these people for decades, almost a century before.
Right, and they've actually got a map. I mean, you can go check this out on your machine, on your screen. You can go check out, go look at the map of consciousness. They've been, that was one of the things, one of the projects that they've been working on is to be able to map consciousness. So you can go in and type in U.S. Psychotronics Association, and you can type in members or contributors and see a list of all the people that have been involved with it, and from the beginning. And like you said, Tesla's there, Royal Reich is there, and we may start off the show getting into a little bit of the Reich idea, because a lot of people don't know about the Reich technology, Royal Reich, and frequencies, sexual energy, orgone energy, crystals. It's actually really an amazing story, is it not? I mean, what happened to him, what he was out there doing out in his ranch, making it rain. But they demonized him, and they got rid of him based on this sexual energy stuff. Did they not, Epic Journeyman?
Yeah, the two get conflated a lot because they both worked and their paths crossed, right? So the psychoanalyst was Wilhelm Reich.
Yeah.
And Wilhelm Reich was, if you ever see everybody's seen this episode of Bugs Bunny, where it tried to convince Bugs that he's actually Elmer J. Fudd, because Elmer J. Fudd has lost his memory. There's some kind of confusion where they pick up him instead of Elmer, right? And they, end up taking a drug to him, and drug assist him, and then they hypnotize him, And the next thing you know, repeat after me: I am Elmer J. Fudd, millionaire. I own a yacht mansion and a yacht, right?
Right.
And it goes over and over. Next thing you know, he's driving around doing that stuff. Well, that's Wilhelm Reich. He has his really distinctive hairdo, the kind of wild white hair and stuff like that. And they made fun of that in the episode. Well, but he also was a guy. He's the guy who invented orgone energy and came up with that term. And it's based on the organism and orgasm, right? And he made these Faraday cages, and it's totally like a best way to describe it, I guess, is a technologically assisted tantric sex, maybe. You'd try to capture that energy, the life force, and that you could heal people with that. But what he was famous for was the psychology of. I wrote a book called, you have right there in front of you, I know we did, about fascism, because he left in 1939. He was there to see it in Austria in 1933, and
he was a Nazi, right?
Well, he left. He left in 1939. He would have been. He was there from 1933 to 39. He took a lot of those things he learned as the Nazis were taking over with him. So he kind of gets a rap a lot as being a Nazi. He wasn't actually a Nazi per se, at least not an official one, because he left before we invaded in 1939. Not we. Speaking for him, the Germans invaded Poland in 1939.
Well, the book, The Mass Psychology of Fascism, the cover of that book, there's like a little graphic over to the right, and it kind of looks like a swastika. I don't know if you've seen the cover of that book.
Everybody thinks he was a Nazi, though. Yeah, everybody. Everybody who studies him thinks he was, because in that book, what he described was and I've only read excerpts of the book. I haven't read the book personally, the whole thing. It's cover to cover. But he describes how the mechanism of the way people hold their bodies, like body language, it shows their psychological profile, and that it actually, basically, fascist. You could pick a fascist out of a crowd by the way they walk. Is basically what he's saying, the way they move, right? To sum it up, I mean, basically, and there's more to it than that, of course. But I mean, that was kind of the basis of what he was working on, and then he got into this Orgone stuff, and he actually was a victim of of something that everybody blames on the Nazis. This is really ironic. I thought is he ended up getting charged as a criminal here in America, right?
Right.
And they locked him up, and they burned his books. They burned like tons of his books. I mean, this is something we associate with the Nazis, and here in America, this is an actual book burning of Reich's books.
Dude, he was making it rain out there, wasn't he? They came out from what I've heard is that he was making it rain out. I don't know, here in 2021, I'm sure everyone listening audience, and if you haven't, you've seen something called cloud busters, where people take crystals and copper pipes and they make these units that generate energy, and you can see them. They'll put them down, they'll put them up, and there'll be a cloud. They'll clear clouds. They'll literally blow holes in clouds with these devices, apparently. So have you seen these videos, Epic Journeyman, where you have these giant crystals with copper pipes mixed with, because you make orgone by taking metals and putting them together with a resin. And then, so what they do is they make this mixture and then put them in these 5-gallon buckets, and then they put giant copper pipes with crystals, quartz crystals in them, and they literally blow holes in clouds. Some people say when they bring them outside, all of a sudden black helicopters start showing up. Have you heard any of this stuff, man?
Well, yeah, and the reason that we hear a lot of them together with not only their names sound similar, right, but Reich and Reich, is because when I mentioned at the beginning of the show about how it was such a classified thing, this RF weaponry, which was real, still is real, 100% real, right? But as soon as you talked about it, there was an actual interest in the name of national security here in America to shut that shit down, man, to shut that kind of talk down. So basically, anything that made Reich or Reich look like a crackpot was done. Because here's people working on it, People. It's ironic that in the late 70s and the 80s, people didn't talk about the guy who had most to do with this anybody, Nikola Tesla, right? Mm-hmm. Who's famous for all kinds of other things that we use today. World wouldn't exist the way it is without him, right? With electricity and AC theory, but and many other inventions he made. But they left him alone. They never considered him like a crackpot. They just kind of tried to, mitigate his popularity, right, by saying, "Oh, it was Marconi that invented the radio." No, it wasn't. It was Nikola Tesla. He's awarded the patent now, but back then they said it was Marconi. Things like that to kind of minimize his popularity and culture, right? But in the case of Reich and Reich, the only way they could handle it, because Reich was working on radionics, which was this idea of using electrical energy in different frequencies, specifically frequencies, to cure cancer, to cure diseases, to make people healthier. Mm-hmm. And it appeared to work, right? At least from his perspective, and people who are working on the same kind of technology. And in the case of Reich and this orgone energy, this life force kind of energy, there's also the problem with his politics, right? which never really said he was a Nazi, but everybody just kind of assumed, right? And people have to remember too that Austria back in those days, in the late 19th century and into the early 20th century, was the home of psychology. I mean, that was it. That's where all this stuff happened. That's where that's where Freud came from. This is a disciple of Freud. That's where everybody got together and wrote their papers in Austria, basically. So this is where it's coming from. So it's not like he's not a known person in the field. You know what I mean? He's actually a very high regarded person in the field.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is a person's political affiliations or belief systems, as far as in reference to whether or not the technology that they're working with is real or it isn't. There's plenty of Nazi flying saucer stories, and believe me, if there was any Nazi flying saucer scientists, I don't think anybody would really have a problem with the fact that they were Nazis. You know, because they at the point that they invited him in Operation Paperclip, you know, what they did in the past was okay, you know. But for some reason, this particular Nazi was not okay. Okay.
And he left. He's almost like Einstein that way, right? You know, because he left before this hit the fan, right? Yeah. We also welcome Angela in the chat.
Oh yeah,
this
hey,
is kind of her
Angela.
gig, you know. So
I know.
maybe she'd like to drop in and say hello.
I'm not sure. She may not, but go ahead.
Well, I saw you. We got the break coming up in 2.
Yeah,
but
we do.
I say.
Actually, let's just do the break and get it out of the way. We'll come back and get into this, man.
It's just the way I walk. The way I talk is just the way I talk. The way I smile is just the way I smile. Touch me, baby, and I go home wild.
It's Aftermath FM.
Love is just the way I love. Come on and be my little turtle dove. Touch me, baby, it feels so good. I feel as though I wanna, then I don't know if I should.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendovite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendovite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendovite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Take a journey into the real underworld of our governing structures. Everything you wanted to know about power, evil, magic, murder, ritual, and sacrifice, as practiced by the ruling groups on this planet. The Light of Darkness, a warrior's tale for our time, as told by a Navy SEAL, CIA contractor, and initiate of Palo Mayombe, one of the oldest and most precise blood magic systems on the planet. Available exclusively on Amazon, in Kindle and paperback. Get your copy today.
I'm constantly...
It's Aftermath FM, Monday through Friday, 10:30 Pacific, right here. Immediately following Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero, you'll find us. I want to remind you, for $79 a year, you can become a member and have access to all the archives, the research materials, the different hosts, and everybody's there behind the wall of freedom. So get over the wall, $79 for the year or $10 a month. Head on over there, slash into the microcosm if you want to support the show. A chunk of that will go to the show. And believe me, we could use it, man. So we put a lot of time and energy into this bad boy. It's Aftermath FM.
Me and GB, we ain't never gonna confess.
intention and subtle energy to the physical world. We're interested in technology that works together with mental intention to do practical things. For example, to heal, to enhance human performance, and to improve agricultural crops. Our goals are really to unleash the full human potential of mind, body, and spirit, and to expand science to embrace consciousness, and to explore and learn more about what probably is a subtle energy or that is involved in mediating these phenomena, and also involved in vibrational testing with devices that we use. We'd like to foster new technology for health, farming, and other beneficial applications too. So our conference features 20 speakers over a weekend of 3 days, 14 through the 16, 2017. We have some very notable.
So that's Beverly Rubik with a quick explanation of the United States Psychotronic Association. You can become a member. Anybody can become a member. You can head over there, and once you're a member, you can get access to some of the research material and stuff over there. And there's a lot of contributors. It's actually a big space for people to contribute to each other and to get this this idea of psychotronics and going, you know, and the idea of one of the really cool experiments that they did, and you know, she represented it in a talk, you know, explaining what was going to be going on at this 2017 conference. And one of the things was this thing called an intention generator. So what they did was they had some people get together in a room, and they focused on this idea of changing the alkaline content of water, and they sent this device that they put their intention into across the world to Germany, and they put this device next to a glass of water. They tested the water before, and the alkaline was at a certain level. When they brought the intention generator into the room, the alkaline content of the water was changed to the levels that were used in the intention experiment, Epic Journeyman. So they were actually able to take this intensive energy of their intent and contain it in a device and mail it off and send it to somebody, and then have it emanate that vibrational energy right to the glass of water in Germany. So now, what about this, Epic Journeyman? We hear a lot about people talking about unconscious intention generators, people walking around creating reality by their unconscious power to create. You know, the human being is more powerful than we're given credit for, and I think a lot of times, well, you know, we're in the situation we're in because I think there's people that do know exactly how powerful everyone is, and diverting our attention or grabbing and seducing us away from our own personal human abilities, and diverting us off, capturing our imagination, and then keeping us stuck in this cage that we wouldn't necessarily be in had we not been diverted away from our own ability to imagine and create intensive and intent to you know, have an effect on the world around us.
Yeah, no, it's there's some great experiments. Dr. Masaru, I think it's Masaru Emoto, this Japanese researcher, is famous for the ice crystal experiments. He's done it on film, and you know, has some videos making a chronology of his experiments from the start to finish, and showing how saying just words, you know, as you walk by, or writing them on both ways, just saying the word, you know, I love you, I hate you, whatever, to so ice crystals, basically to water, just to water that you freeze, and then the crystals that are formed from it, and the shape of those crystals change, you know, completely based on the words you tell it and the intention as you speak these things to it continually. And the rice experiment is one that we can all do, and many people have done this, is a test on their own. You just make 3 jars of rice, right? you don't cook. Well, you can cook the rice. I think it's supposed to work better if you cook it, but it's got to be sealed from the air, right? You write on it, love, hate, ignore, basically, or thank you, you're a fool, whatever, different things, right? However you want to do it, variations thereof. And every day you pick up that jar, and there's nothing different. It's the same batch of rice, right? And one you're giving all this positive reinforcement to, and thoughts when you're saying it, and the words. The other one is oftentimes, like I said, written on there. It's actually written there to remind you of the right one to say it to or do it to, right? And then the other one is you put all this negative energy and hatred to. And it's amazing how much the one that has the hate emotions and intentions directed towards it, the negative energy directed towards it, how much it deteriorates. It starts, rotting basically right there inside the container, inside this air sealed jar.
Instead of
as opposed to the one that's, the kind of ignored one is in between, obviously, like you'd expect, and then the one you give all this positive reinforcement to looks like the day you cooked it. And this is done over and over again by people like in classroom, especially now with homeschool and stuff, people do it, when they're doing these kind of science lab experiments at home. There's countless examples of this, and it seems to hold up. I mean, it does if you do the test right. There's people who've done videos on YouTube you can find, how much credibility you want to give them. I don't know. Some are scientists, some aren't. But just the point is, it seems to be something everybody can do, and it seems to work pretty universally. So here's this idea that the power of your intentions really do have an effect, and that if you can harness that energy, right, or amplify that energy, then that's what Wilhelm Reich was trying to do. Okay, so what I found really interesting, there's so many things that are interesting about both Reich and Reich, but in the case of Reich, that he did this in a Faraday cage, and I think it's just fascinating. What's old is new again, because there's a parallel between what's going on in America today, what's happening in Austria, Germany, back then, right? I mean, back in the 1930s, 20s, 30s, we'll say that the peak was in the 20s, right? 1920s. That was the main, that was it. That was the epicenter of all scientific research, the arts, literature, everything was coming out of there. It was like America was back, let's say, in this, post-war world, right? And then what happened? It started degrading. Fascism took over, right? And science got weaponized. It got weaponized instead of being done for healing and for the experimentation for the thrill of not the thrill, but the positive effects that these experimentations that people did could have on the world and be used. They were used as weapons to control people. And whether people want to admit it or not, that is exactly what's happening in America right now. One of the things that leading to our downfall right now is this very thing: the fact that we're taking the what should be our talent, right? And instead of using these technologies developed for the good, we're using it to control and to profit. Well, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, well, listen, I did a show today with Kev Baker, and I was on there yesterday. I told him I'd come back with 5 things that could change the world today. So I came back with those 5 things. I did that show, and I fulfilled my agreement. And you can find, I'm going to bring that show over here to Aftermath. You'll be able to find it over here. But what I want, one of the things that I brought to the table was something that I remembered from a long time ago. And if you didn't remember it or you don't know about it, it doesn't exist. You can't find it. You don't know what to search for. So there's a search term you can use for yourself to see the video that I'm going to play right now. Now, this dude is dead, okay? This video is from 2007, is when I originally saw it. And the reason I brought it to the 5 things that could change the world today was because this dude sets salt water on fire, ladies and gentlemen. How does he do it? Well, take a listen to this. It's in the microcosm.
Almost $4 for gas. How would you like to run your car on salt water? Now, it may sound crazy, but wait until you see what a local inventor has come up with that could change the world. And as Channel 3's Michael Mara shows us, that's not all he's trying to do.
We need to get it to around 100.
Retired TV station owner and broadcast engineer John Kansas was not looking for an answer to the energy crisis. He was looking for a way to cure cancer. 4 years ago, inspiration struck in the middle of the night. Why not use radio waves to kill the cancer cells?
And the best thing that would work as antennas was I could find at 3 o'clock in the morning was my wife's pie pants.
His wife Marianne heard the noise and found her husband inventing a radio frequency generator using her pie pans.
I got up immediately and thought he'd lost it.
Here are the basics of John's idea. Radio waves will heat certain metals like gold. Tiny bits of that metal are injected into a cancer patient. Those nanoparticles are attracted to the abnormalities of the cancer cell and ignore the healthy cells. The patient is then exposed to radio waves and only the bad cells heat up and die. Killing cancer cells is amazing, but John had also stumbled on yet another amazing breakthrough.
You have enough in there?
His machine could actually burn salt water. John Kansas discovered that his radio frequency generator could release the oxygen and hydrogen from salt water and create an incredibly intense flame.
Just like that. If that was inside a car cylinder, you could see the amount of fire that would be in the cylinder. I can put my hand in here.
Put your hand into the beam, nothing happens. Put in a fluorescent bulb and it lights up immediately. At the APV Company Laboratory in Akron, top engineers have checked out John's amazing invention and they were amazed.
And we saw it go up to 1,500 degrees centigrade, the temperature. And it's incredible.
This simple Stirling engine is running with the heat generated by the flames coming off that test tube. The fuel, nothing more than salt water.
Well, that could be a steam engine, a steam turbine. Could be a car engine if you wanted it to be.
That's the true American innovator. Someone that is not looking for something, he just finds it.
This is the most abundant element in the world, water. And salt water is everywhere. And to see it burn actually gives me chills.
So imagine the possibilities. Salt water as the ultimate clean fuel, a happy byproduct of one man searching for a cure for cancer. In Erie, Pennsylvania, Mike O'Mara, Channel 3 News.
That is amazing. We want it now.
That is amazing. Well, that is so amazing. 2007 that came out, man. Why are we not driving around in cars powered by salt water, man?
It's really old, man. It goes, I mean, maybe ancient actually, but in terms of what we know, it got crushed back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. I mean, why? I don't know. Even things like that, and even hydrogen peroxide, which powered torpedoes back in World War I, right? I mean, they have something in common here. In the case of this, what's happening is it's the hydrogen that's burning there, right? It's reaction with the hydrogen. So you had Stanley Meyer's water car in 1995. He was driving all over across country, said he could power it off a snowball if he wanted to, right? Mm-hmm. And that guy he mysteriously died. He was one of those victims back at the time in the 90s when people talked about exactly that. Like, you don't play ball with the oil companies and something seems to happen to these people,
this
right?
dude died 3 years later.
Yeah.
And they
people
give you
these things.
They give you the exact frequency. It's like 13.5 something hertz. You could I mean, in other words, if you go to his Wikipedia page on his name, you'll see that I can go grab that in a minute, and you can see they'll tell you the exact frequency to do it. So the point is that this is the same kind of an idea about what we're talking about with the U.S. Psychotronic Association.
Right. He was talking about, when I was listening to the guy who was stunned, that was the not the narrator, but the kind of commentator and the sidekick in a way. He was describing exactly the Reich machines, the radionics machines, because and the guy who actually invented it, he was obviously following up on Reich's work because he was trying to use radionics to cure cancer. That's exactly what Reich was doing. So the thing is, like, this kind of hydrogen fuel cell technology that starts burning so hot like that, right? Just basic salt water was used by I can't remember his name, a guy in the Philippines. He converted there's you can see videos of this going way back, from starting the 80s. Mm-hmm. He converted the videos came out obviously later, but I mean, he started working on the 80s. He converted like these regular gasoline cars to run on water, just run on seawater. And then Road and Track, not Road and Track, it's a British TV show. It's like Road and Track. It's based on Road and Track. It's a magazine that makes a TV show. They highlighted in the early 2000s GE and GM rather working together on this GM car though at their test track. This seawater car that could power your neighborhood basically, and you could they were thinking it was cool. You could throw these different tops on it. Like, you use the same basic frame, but you can make it a truck. You can make it a regular sports car if you wanted to. You can make it a passenger sedan, whatever you wanted. You just put a different overlay on the top of the frame and make it whatever you want. And it runs on nothing but seawater, right? So here's this technology that's been there this whole time. And so the guy I was describing in the Philippines, you could look it up listeners on the internet and find it and find some videos on YouTube. That technology got bought out, I believe, by Honda. So Honda used that for their fuel cell technology, and the GM one we're still waiting on. But this is like from the early 2000s. It's not that old, you know. And in fact, these videos I'm describing were, I think, like made in 2000, right after Google launched YouTube, right, where YouTube was launched. So we're talking, was that 2008, 9, something like that, maybe a little before. I think that's where it is, right around that time frame. So it's one of the most popular subjects when they first started launching the service, right? Was these videos about these cars.
Yeah, the point isn't about the seawater as fuel. The point is that you can set it on fire by applying frequency to it, and cause it to be used as fuel. So you could, in other words, you could boil water and have a Stirling engine and run a steam engine off of this by just hitting it with 13. Whatever it is. Here, I'll tell you what it is. So I went and got his name. So his name is John Kanzius, Kanzius. He was an American inventor, radio and TV engineer, one-time station owner of a ham radio operator. So this would be probably a big journeyman. He had a ham radio, probably equipment. He had the ability to transmit, I guess, 13. Well, let's see exactly what it is here. Ham radio operator, call sign K3TUP from Erie, Pennsylvania. He invented a method that he said could treat virtually all forms of cancer with no side effects and without the need for surgery or medication. He also demonstrated a device that generated flammable hydrogen-containing gas from saltwater solution with the use of radio waves. In the media, this was dubbed as burning salt water. Both effects involved his use of radio frequency transmitter. Kanzius was a self-taught. He stated he was motivated to research the subject of cancer and treatment. His own experience undergoing chemotherapy for a treatment of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He died of B-cell leukemia with complications of pneumonia without seeing FDA approval of his commercialization of his invention. I can scroll down here and find the exact frequency. Hang on a second. But, I mean, if you're interested, ladies and gentlemen, here, it's 13.56 megahertz. So, here, let me just tell you what his idea around this cancer treatment was. That is an experimental cancer treatment. He took gold or carbon nanoparticles. And he basically his idea was that the patient would ingest these nanoparticles, and then the nanoparticles go to where the cancer is, the cancerous cells, for some reason, and they get picked up by these cells. And so when you hit those metals with this frequency, it cooks the cancer cell or the tumor or whatever it is that you're trying to get rid of. So, I mean, from a conceptual standpoint, it sounds like a no-brainer to me. In other words, it almost sounds like have you ever heard the lung cancer cure, which is molasses and baking soda? So you eat molasses and you mix it with baking soda, and cancer loves sugar. So when you eat the molasses, it goes to the sugar. It wants to feed off the sugar, but there's a high alkaline baking soda in there, and it kills. So if you're ever in a pinch, you think you're gonna die, and you got lung cancer, you got no other way out, try the molasses and baking soda treatment. You never know. But look, this here though, Epic Journeyman. I mean, seemed like a no-brainer to me. Nanoparticles being heated by frequencies. Come on, I mean, this seems like a medicine in the 2021, doesn't it?
Well, I think it's older than that. Obviously, it's one of those repressed technologies. I do honestly believe that, because there's so many things that we've seen in nature that have already incorporated that kind of thing, and so directing it that way, like Reich did, like this inventor did, is what's unique. Is to give it boost, right, to direct it to a particular part of the body, which is what's important when you're fighting something like cancer, right? You don't want to kill the good parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, give it, like you said, the molasses analogy is a good one, I think. So talking about that frequency, what we learned, this is coming from nature. It comes from a thing called the pistol shrimp. Not just the pistol shrimp. There's different things into it, but the pistol shrimp is this shrimp that it snaps its claw. It's in the ocean, right? Seawater, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes this concussive wave that is so powerful, right, that it actually causes the hydrogen in the water to burn, just like the torch you're talking about, just like burning the seawater. Exactly
Wow.
that. And it causes what's called sonoluminescence. I linked it in the chat here for us, and I put it in the chat on YouTube so people can look at a video about it when they want to
Oh,
leisure.
cool. So now is there a video that's talking about it? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't.
Mhm. Yeah.
okay.
It's just 4 minutes long.
Well, we're coming up.
I linked it.
We're coming up on the break. So why don't we just do this? Since we got about 4 minutes before the break, so why don't we do that, and then we'll come back and we'll get more into this, because I want to get into the Royal Reich idea, and I want to also talk more about the sexual energy, the orgone energy, and you can make your own orgone. I've done it. I'll just tell you this. I made my own. I mean, I have this idea, being real creative with it and having it look like, all this and whatever. But, I mean, my first try out of the box, it didn't look like I wanted it to. It didn't come out. But, I mean, you can do it. Anybody can do it. There's a million videos. It's easy to do. You can make them look really super cool. There's some people that are really good at doing it. They've got it, pretty much dialed in scientifically. There's also powered ones that you can get. Ones where you actually add power to it. But here, I'll tell you what happened to me. When I made mine, it wasn't pretty or whatever. But when I shit you not, when I put it on my windowsill in my room, within a minute, there was birds like outside in the bushes, like right outside my window. It's all these small finches and birds were like in there, and they were all singing and all happy and stuff, jumping around. I mean, I saw it happen right in front of my face. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm a believer in orgone energy. I'm a believer in Shungite. We could talk a little bit about Shungite. Shungite will help you out in some ways. They're even making tiles that you can put on your. I mean, if you have money. I mean, if you're somebody who's got money, you can put this tile on your walls, and you'll have no interference in your home from outside interference with the radio waves, because this blocks it out. Mom's Jimmy, it's into the microcosm.
You probably don't want to mess with the mantis shrimp. Its claws have inspired modern body armor, and it strikes with 1,500 newtons of force, despite being quite tiny, what you would need to bench press around 150 kilograms. That strike is so powerful that it creates an unusual effect, one that physicists still haven't quite figured out. When the claws snap, the motion creates small, hot bubbles that collapse to release a powerful shockwave and even produce a small pulse of light. It's called sonoluminescence. Researchers can create sonoluminescence in the lab to study how exactly these collapsing bubbles produce light and why they are so hot. Because these bubbles aren't just a little warm, they are about as hot as the surface of the sun. All it takes to produce sonoluminescence is sound with the right frequency moving through water. Sound waves are really just molecules that oscillate back and forth, creating areas of higher and lower pressure. When sound moves through water, the water can get pulled apart enough that the areas of low pressure create a small bubble of water vapor in a process called cavitation. Cavitation bubbles aren't like the regular bubbles you're used to. Regular bubbles are made by releasing gas underwater, like when you exhale. Cavitation creates bubbles because the very low pressure essentially tears a gap in the water. Some molecules quickly evaporate into the bubble, so it's not a vacuum or anything, but these bubbles do have much lower air pressure than a regular bubble. So they collapse. The walls of the bubble push the inside smaller and smaller, so the pressure begins to rapidly increase. There are a couple of ways that the bubbles collapsing could produce heat. One option is that as the pressure increases, so does the temperature, all the way up to several thousand degrees. But it's also possible that it's not just the increase in pressure. The gas inside the bubble might quickly turn back into liquid, which could also release a lot of heat. Either way, the collapse also helps explain why we see see a flash of light. Though again, physicists have come up with a few different possible explanations for what's happening. As the bubble gets hotter, different chemical reactions start taking place. Most of the molecules actually react with one another. These chemical reactions could be releasing a small burst of energy. For example, at high enough temperatures, water vapor dissociates, meaning energy is absorbed as the molecule is ripped apart into hydrogen and hydroxide. Then, when these parts recombine again, they release that energy. The light.
So that is how this is how he's setting the salt water on fire. So one of these engineers from the university, when he sent it over there to be tested to prove his point, they were quick, to point out, well, he's not actually setting water on fire. He's really separating the molecules and burning the hydrogen. But I wanted to stop this here because this is really interesting that you brought this to the table in the discussion. Like, this is happening live. Ladies and gentlemen, we didn't play on this show at all. This show started right at the beginning, and it's right now. So, Epic Journeyman, now, Solo Luminescence is interesting because he talked about that cavitation point. And that cavitation point's an interesting subject matter because Dr. Richard Allen Miller talks a lot about this cavitation point. It's really important. It's like not here nor there. It's the point where it literally could potentially be ripping time and space in that moment. I mean, that's what the flash of light is, that they're talking about here. But
it's fusion. It's actually, they talk about it like it's based on the principles of just simple cavitation, which to a big degree it is, except that once that energy is emitted, right, it's no longer related to either sound, right, or related to wave energy at all. It's actually like literally a mini sun. It's fusion. It is, So I mean, I'm sitting here saying that like with some kind of authority, but I'm not. I mean, I did get to work on ITER, not as a scientist. I got to work. That's the fusion project's been built in Switzerland, and it's gonna be awesome when it's built, when it's done. But it's been all these years now. But the bottom line is, I'm familiar with the ideas behind this. They use magnetic field to contain the fusion reaction rather, because there's no element on the planet that can hold a fusion reaction. You know what I mean? Because it'll just burn through all the steel and everything else.
What about this star in a jar idea?
That's ITER. That's exactly what ITER is. International. I forget what it stands for. I worked on it. Damn it! I can send you a video. It's not classified. General Atomics has their part of it. That's what I worked on. And then there's other corporations and nations have their own part. They're trying to combine their efforts to make this thing. Once it's done, it's gonna make star travel possible. It's gonna make power in the world possible and energy. And that's the problem. It's gonna make energy free for all practical purposes, and that's why it keeps getting held up, by my opinion.
Sonic luminescence. So sonoluminescence, when sound creates light. Now, this has, this seems like it's the basis or the fertile growing place for a lot of some of this high tech technology that we've heard about. Something about this makes me feel like this may have something to do with those infrared beams that could be beamed into your skull at Starbucks to make you buy a new scone or an extra scone. That they send a signal to your eye that your eye can't see the beam, but it's going in you, and then you're hearing like, why don't you get a scone? Scones are good. That kind of thing. Have you heard about this technology, Epic Journeyman?
Yeah, we talked about it on the show, right? I mean, the thing is, can I build one? I can't. We're talking about it with the doc last night a little bit, and I can see all kinds of ways it could work. You know what I mean? And we know that they do have the technology that does work for people like in a museum, an exhibit that actually does that. I mean, not gives you the idea of the picture in your mind to buy a scone, but it uses inaudible frequencies to anybody else walking through the museum or the library or whatever it is, to tell you, like to narrate, something about, let's say, Napoleon or a picture by Michelangelo or whatever. It just beams it right to you. You're in that zone. You can hear it when you're in that zone, standing in front of the exhibit, and that's the real technology right now. I could probably dig that up and share that with the folks. But that's different. But yeah,
it's an easy one. That's an easy one. But the other one is sound being sent across the room in a signal or a beam to a device or to a brain directly. So, it's to that point now. So we're talking about frequency, and we're talking about brains being at the top of your head. And if your body was an antenna, your spine and your feet touching the ground, the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance is going through the earth, at a certain frequency. And so I think,
making me get esoteric now. Like imagine the cosmos is the ocean, and the pistol snapping shrimp, slant mantis shrimp, as being the hand of God in the sense, right? And we're the bubble. We're the bubble. Our reality, our earth is the bubble that's manifested in that moment. I just smoked some weed.
Yeah, well, that's why past, present, and future all happens in a single moment. That's why it's not linear. It's vertical, or it's everywhere, all around, at every moment, right? So we're never really moving anywhere. We're just in one place all the time, right? Conceptually. Anyways, before we get in the weeds, we better go because I'm already late again. It's Aftermath FM, sitting in the microcosm, Epic Journeyman. My name's Jimmy.
You got to live today, don't waste your time away. If you forget to love, just take a look above. 'Cause it can pass you by in the blink of an eye. You got to live today, don't waste your time away. All the plans that we made and all the steps that we take, nothing assigned to the end, it's planned for us when we decide.
It's Aftermath FM.
When it's coming, life is a course that you're running. Every assigned to the extendovite.
When your doctor tells you you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendovite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendovite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendovite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
On June 1st, 1996, John and Joyce Edmonds purchased a ranch in Rainbow Valley, Arizona. What has ensued for the past 2+ decades defies all accepted understanding of our reality. Portals, aliens, abductions, incursions, and life-threatening confrontations. Stardust Ranch has become one of the most compelling paranormal stories of the last quarter century, studied by multiple agencies, public and private, and featured on countless documentaries, including Ghost Hunters. Stardust Ranch remains one of the most compelling mysteries of our time. Get your copy of Stardust Ranch, the incredible true story, available exclusively on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover.
Mine's Jimmy. It's into the microcosm. Monday through Friday, right here, immediately following Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero, 10:30 Pacific. You'll find us. Don't forget to check out Billy Ray Valentine Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Snitching time just about sent me from going through the same old moves. And this cat is 9, he still suffers. He's going through the same old blues. But that storm just keeps on rolling, bringing me some real bad news. Take us, get the honey, give us sing the blues. Too many crooks, yeah, spoil such a good thing.
Robin Trower, Two Rolling Stone, Epic Journeyman, are you there? We don't have time, man.
I'm here. I'm snapping like the shrimp over here.
No, we're already running out of time, man. Too much show, not enough time. And, the thing is, like I said, we were rolling the dice when we got here because we were having technical issues. We didn't have a show planned, and boom!
My headset wasn't working. I didn't have. Jimmy could hear me, but I couldn't. I mean, he couldn't hear me, rather.
It's always something.
The other way around.
I wonder what this is. Something. I'm seeing this here. I don't know where this came from. It just all of a sudden I clicked on something and somehow this appeared. I've heard it before, but I don't remember what it is. But let's just roll the dice. It says here's the title: When the X-Files Drops the Truth. Let's check it out.
What are they trying to do?
That's the missing piece. But it's not hard to imagine. Driven not only by corporate greed, but a darker objective. The takeover of America. And then the world itself, by any means necessary, however violent, or cruel, or efficient. By severe drought, brought on by weather wars, conducted secretly using aerial contaminants and high-altitude electromagnetic waves. In a state of perpetual war. To create problem, reaction, solution scenarios to distract, enrage, and enslave American citizens at home. With tools like the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, which abridge the Constitution in the name of national security. The militarization of police forces in cities across the U.S., the building of prison camps by the Federal Emergency Management Agency with no stated purpose. The corporate takeover of food and agriculture, pharmaceuticals and healthcare, even the military in clandestine agendas to fatten, dull, sicken, and control a populace already consumed by consumerism. And I encourage you all to go shopping more. A government that taps your phone, collects your data, and monitors your whereabouts with impunity. A government preparing to use that data against you when it strikes. And the final takeover begins.
The takeover of America.
By a well-oiled and well-armed multinational group of elites that will cull, kill, and subjugate.
Damn. Well, I guess the X-Files drops the truth, doesn't it? So, yeah, that was over stopthecrime.net. Put that out. So I don't know why that's here, but there it is. You can extra bonus track tonight here on In the Microcosm from the greatest hits over at stopthecrime.net.
His production company is 1013 Productions, right? So, which is the date of the Knights Templar being made illegal, disbanded, and hunted across Europe.
Wow.
Which is Friday the 13th. Isn't that interesting that he would choose that date, right?
That is interesting. So now, what about this energy, this orgone energy, this healing energy, this sexual energy? This is the energy that makes the world go round, is it not?
Yeah, and I thought before the show, well, not before the show, during the show, we're getting ready for the show. We're trying to get our stuff together to kind of have a something to work off of. I was thinking about how that Reich orgone energy. Two things. Well, one is like how instead of being out in the world, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of isolated from the world because he made Faraday cages to make it work, right? So in other words, you're isolating yourself from all the external, electronic noise essentially. Or it doesn't have to just be electronic, but especially back then, they put radio waves, things like that, to focus on the actual natural energy, which I thought was a pretty novel concept for back then, right? To do that, and with the sexual energy involved as well. But then I thought about a dumb 80s movie, right, where it's called Life Force, where the aliens come in the comet and they're basically vampires, but they don't suck your blood. They're here to collect our energy, to harvest us for our energy, our life energy, our Orgone energy. They don't call it that in the movie, but that's what it is. And so the concept's been around for a long time. In other words, it's not the we think of energy for us lowly folks, not like coal and oil, and maybe we get fancy and think about fission and fusion if we're really good, but there's other people who think about this from the get-go. It's us. It's our energy.
Well, I would say that. I mean, I don't know why they went crazy and arrested this guy, because he's obviously
and burned his books. The FDA, an unusual, highly unusual thing, ordered him to be arrested. Essentially, the FDA doesn't have that kind of authority, but basically, called it was false advertising and dangerous and all that stuff. But they ordered that all his work be destroyed.
Didn't he die in prison?
He died in prison. They sentenced him to prison. Think about that for a minute. Talk about a country where freedom of speech and expression, all that stuff's supposed to be a real thing, and a guy who fled essentially Germany, he came from Austria, at the height of the war starting in 1939, comes over here, becomes this great inventor, a renowned psychologist, psychiatrist, and has all his contributions to science at the time, and gets thrown in jail, and his work is literally burned. I can't think of anybody in modern history, in history in general, that this happened to. It's happened to people, but we don't hear about it very rarely. This is like, this is kind of like Joan of Arc kind of shit. You know what I mean? I don't know what else to describe it as. This is kind of something that's like been buried. Like the Joan of Arc story is not related scientifically in any way or energy-wise. I'm just saying that's a story that is only resurfaced because it was buried for centuries, right?
Well,
think what you want about Joan of Arc. She was tuned into something, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, if you are a person that likes the alternative media, then this is like a red flag. When there's somebody that gets arrested and having their books burned, this should make you want to look at it. because every single time it's 180 degrees to whatever the government's saying about something. You know what I mean? Whatever they're telling you, it's usually 180 degrees out. So this guy seems like he's a bad guy or whatever. So I got to look into him again. We've looked into him before, but let's do it again.
Sigmund Freud considered Wilhelm Reich to be one of the most brilliant of the young psychoanalysts with whom Freud worked in Vienna in the early 1920s. Reich didn't have the opportunity to visit Freud here in his study in Hampstead in what is now the Freud Museum. Reich didn't get to lay on Freud's famous couch, but we do find a selection of Reich's most important psychoanalytic works on Freud's bookshelf over there. This is a collection of Reich's social and political writings. In it, Reich argued for the essential compatibility of Marxism and psychoanalysis, and argued against Freud's view that sexual repression was the condition of possibility for all civilization. He used the same kind of anthropological work that Freud himself had used to argue that sexual freedom and civilization were compatible. It must be admitted that many of Reich's early writings appear dated to us today, but that makes it all the more striking when we discover resonances between his descriptions of the authoritarian patriarchal society in which he lived and aspects of our own society today. Reich is best known today for his work that started in the 1930s. Reich developed what he called a science of orgonomics based on the positing of a fundamental sexual life energy animating the whole universe, which he called orgone energy. We remember Reich's theory of orgone energy, if we do these days, mostly via his invention of the Orgone Energy Accumulator, a large wooden box inside which the patient would sit to absorb the orgone energy, achieve orgiastic potency, and cure all manner of mental and physical ills. The Orgone Accumulator is, though, perhaps best remembered via Woody Allen's parody of it in his 1973 film Sleeper, where it appeared as the Orgasmatron. If anybody remembers Reich's cloud-busting machine, a machine which directed orgone energy outwards and upwards to cause rain in deserts and also, of course, to repel alien invaders, it's probably through Kate Bush's song Cloud-Busting. Says more about the history of Western popular culture in the last 50 years that we remember the Orgone Accumulator and the Cloudbuster, where we don't remember Reich's early social and political writings. Reich's very humane sensitivity to human suffering focused very often on the sufferings of children and adolescents, which isn't to say he wasn't interested in adults, but that he saw the roots of adult suffering in the oppression of the children and adolescents that all those adults had once been. He saw a contradiction in the way that even the socialist family who fought for social justice dominated their own children and thus perpetuated the very structures of society against which they were arguing as socialists. Perhaps one of the strongest aspects of these early social and political writings is Reich's insistence on the inseparability of the struggle for social justice and the feminist movement. Reich argued very strongly that the aims of left struggles could not be achieved so long as patriarchy was reproduced in the family, because that was the reproduction of the very form of society against which socialists were arguing. That is a lesson that perhaps some sections of the left still have to learn today.
Well, there it is, a brief history. Only on Into the Microcosm in the middle of the night, ladies and gentlemen. But there it is, Epic Journeyman. So, the Orgone Accumulator. Now, is this a box where people went and sat? Let's focus a little bit on the Orgone Accumulator, because
I totally was while she was mentioning this, because in his case, he was talking about Faraday cages and isolating people, which she used the wooden box description, and again, it's basically being isolated from external influence, right? And being or it's not necessarily being completely isolated; it's directing just a certain part of the energy in, right? It's not. In other words, the wood part is it's grounded, it's earth based, it's not fabricated. It's part of the construct of our physical reality in our world, right? In a natural way. So and whatever you do to assist in that way, and without getting into details of what he was trying to achieve necessarily through the science, such as it was, the thing is, like I recall the story of when was it Pythagoras? It wasn't Pythagoras. It was Archimedes. Archimedes went to Heliopolis in Egypt, in the mystery schools in Egypt, and they had this chamber underground where people who were sick, they'd put them in this labyrinth underground. And it wasn't like a labyrinth to confuse them. It was to get them to where they'd wander through, and as they went through, there were people above who were trying to help them heal themselves. And they'd whisper these encouraging thoughts, very much like that intention generation thing that was being talked about earlier. And it would heal them. So they'd go from one waypoint to the other inside this construct based in the earth, right? And it would heal them. Now this is a story that we have no basis for to prove it existed, but it survived. That's why I'm talking about it right now, right? Because it survived. So, obviously, this is what was trying to be tapped into. It's the same kind of energy. It's the same kind of thing with that focus, intention, positive reinforcement as well. To take the bad influences away and focus on the good for the sake of healing.
Also, there's a way to create pyramidal energies and pyramidal forces with these frequencies and these energies. And that may be exactly what the Emerald Tablets of Thoth were talking about when he said when he built a pyramid, he used his magic to oppose the earth force. And this may be some sort of an energy generation or piezoelectric amplifier type of apparatus. We don't know, but we can only at this point speculate. But you know, like I said, Orgone is taken off about 10 years ago. People started getting into it as far as, you know, using devices or making your own. Like I said, it's kind of fun, man. If you got nothing to do, you just get an old cupcake pan or whatever. Get yourself some resin, some fiberglass resin, and some hardener, and you just mix in some metals and some crystals and stuff. You know, you can, like I say, there's a million videos on the internet. You can see how to do it if you feel like having some fun for yourself. There was this whole movement for a while where people were taking Orgone pucks that they were making out of these cupcake pounds, and they were going around everywhere they saw a cell site and throwing them at the base of the cell site to try to, you know, disrupt the harmful rays coming out of there. You know, so, you know, I don't know. I've seen the Cloudbusters, and I'm saying, this guy, he was making it rain, man. So he's a rainmaker who died in prison.
I have built an Orgone Accumulator using Reich's original design. His plans call for alternating layers of metal and insulating material surrounded by wood and metal.
According to Reich, the Orgone energy will be attracted to the metal and then stored by the insulator.
I've also created a fake accumulator that looks similar but has hollow walls. My hypothesis is that the subjects in the accumulator will be affected by the Orgone energy, while those in the fake box will not.
Each subject will be connected to a series of sensors to measure heart rate, breathing, temperature, sweat, and brain waves.
It just felt like I was a bit high, almost in a way. I don't know if this is intentional, but this room is like the perfect temperature. It's like kind of weird.
I think at one point I was kind of just like zoned out.
It feels like tingly in my chest. That's weird, actually.
My fingers kind of feel a bit tingly now, actually.
I felt really calm, but then also I had like a sense of energy.
My energy and the energy in the box was just like one.
And then at the very end, I kind of felt the waves of excitement come back again.
It was really weird.
Based on the subject's preliminary responses, the Orgone Accumulator is having an impact. Next, I send a group into the fake accumulator.
I felt very claustrophobic and hot.
I feel really anxious. I didn't really feel much. I just kind of just sat there and waited.
A bit conscious of my breathing.
I'm waiting for the benefits to kick in.
The lack of stimuli is kind of nice.
I felt like I wanted to bust out of there.
I consider myself an introvert, but I could go for some human interaction soon.
The initial feedback from the group placed in the fake box is far more negative than the first group who spent time in the accumulator.
The anecdotal evidence suggests that there was something to the accumulator. To help me find out why, I turned to my sensors.
The wireless brainwave monitors failed in Reich's invention.
The metal-lined accumulator blocks electromagnetic waves. Fortunately, my hardwired sensors still work.
The data from the heart rate sensors is not conclusive. No pattern emerges from either group.
I feel kind of tired and sleepy.
Next up, my breathing sensors, and here the data starts to get interesting.
I don't think I've ever been this relaxed. What is this magical box?
The longer participants sat in the accumulator, the deeper their breathing became. This would indicate the subjects are entering a state of tranquility. The stress sensors back up the idea that there's something to the box. The data from them shows that stress levels for subjects in the fake accumulator rose the longer they stayed inside the box,
I don't like it.
while the stress levels of those in the real accumulator decline. Very interesting.
I'm feeling quite calm in here, if that makes any sense.
Oh, something's happening.
This is amazing.
Was there something happening inside the accumulator?
Anecdotal responses and preliminary data from the sensors indicate a difference between the Reich accumulator and the control.
There it is, man. They were monitoring people, obviously. I don't have to explain what you heard, but I'll say it again. A fake box and a real box. Orgone box, Epic Journeyman. So there's energy there. Something's happening to people. Now, in the original experiment, was there masturbation going on? I mean, they said they were collecting and accumulating.
Well, okay. Now, what little research I've done into to Reich, I haven't done a lot, right? Other than this is typical stuff we all can find pretty easy. But the most esoteric and nothing esoteric I got was the Bugs Bunny reference, right? But the thing is that I did find there were some allusions to the fact that he was some kind of sexual freak. You know what I mean? Like he was getting his freak on with in the process of testing, he was getting some. Enjoyment out of the test, to put it bluntly, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think, that's how I think that's the kind of thing that they use to get rid of you. They say accuse you of something like that. But there's something to it, obviously. And I mean, some of the oldest people in, some of the oldest living Chinese dudes, what they do is they never have an orgasm. And they instead of having an orgasm, they suck that sexual energy back up into their spine. And because there's something to the sexual energy as far as how long you live and how much of it you put out. It's interesting too. What's really interesting about it is that when a man has an orgasm, he's all tired out, he's tuckered out, and he's spent. But when a woman has an orgasm, she gets energized by it. It's interesting, man. Anyways, my name's Jimmy. We're talking about energy. It's midnight on the West Coast. Have you seen that crescent moon with that bright planet hanging over there? It's aftermathfm.
Just close my eyes again. Climbed aboard the Dreamweaver train. Trying to take away my worries of today and leave tomorrow behind. Ooh,
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
On June 1st, 1996, John and Joyce Edmonds purchased a ranch in Rainbow Valley, Arizona. What has ensued for the past 2+ decades defies all accepted understanding of our reality. Portals, aliens, abductions, incursions, and life-threatening confrontations. Stardust Ranch has become one of the most compelling paranormal stories of the last quarter century. studied by multiple agencies, public and private, and featured on countless documentaries, including Ghost Hunters. Stardust Ranch remains one of the most compelling mysteries of our time. Get your copy of Stardust Ranch, The Incredible True Story, available exclusively on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover.
Monday through Friday, 10:30 Pacific, right here, Aftermath FM, exclusively. It's Into the Microcosm, the party after the after party, the underground, the alternative to the alternative. It ain't your granddaddy's late night. It's Aftermath FM. So, Epic Journeyman, the moment of divine spark, the moment of creation, you think it is that cavitation point, that blast of energy that is like the sun, that is the thing.
And the Spirit of God moved across the deep, right? And spoke, right? That there it is. I mean, there it is, right? It let there be light, and there was light. Right? That's the creation of the universe, and so there you go from the biblical text, and so that is exactly this parallel in nature with the solar luminescence. Solar luminescence. Excuse me. That's it. I mean that is absolutely it. So you can make all kinds of metaphors and comparisons every other way, but the fact is that is a creative force, absolutely 100%.
I believe so too, and this idea of divine spark and the moment of creation, to me, this is the same idea that would be behind the Ark of the Covenant, and to me, I just think that there's a permeating force through the universe, just like Reich said. He was talking about the sexual energy being throughout the universe, this orgone, or why, and I guess the whole reason he called it orgone is because it had, it was built, the orgone was built around orgasm, is what I'm assuming. And that's why I guess it was found to be dirty, and he needed to be thrown in jail. Now, do you know why he was jailed? What was his reason for being thrown in jail? Do you know what they used as the reason for it?
Yeah, well, they said that his work was dangerous. I mean, it's the most outright anti-First Amendment thing I've ever heard in my life. I mean, they're basically saying that his work has no basis in science, and therefore could hurt people potentially, and it's dangerous. And yet, there's no evidence of that at all. I mean, and to burn his work, to destroy his work, and put him in prison. I mean, think about that happening today. Like of us, me and you being thrown in jail for saying what we're talking about tonight. About, for example, making the parallel to that shrimp being the creative force of the universe that God used to speak the universe into reality, right? That we know today. That bubble that we live inside, is that spark of creation. That spark, that analogy specifically, that spark, that is exactly right? I mean, that bubble is the bubble we live in. And someday that bubble is going to collapse, and that will be the end, right? But where we go, we'll go back into the ocean of consciousness, into reality, into the mind of God again, which we're all part of anyway. So it's not death in any way, but it's the collapse of that bubble. Well, I get too philosophical, and I guess it's too late for me to do that. But I would say that Yeah, he got thrown in jail for dangerous thoughts, having a dangerous mind, not for violence, but for something that went against the economic structure, the socioeconomic structure, I guess is totally appropriate in a sense, the socioeconomic structure of the time he lived in. In other words, if his stuff proved to be true, then medicine as we knew it would be different, right? Energy as we knew it would be different, just like Reich. Reich was exactly the same thing, right? And so with radionics. And so and other things he worked on as well. So those guys had to be shut down and ridiculed and whatever, because the work that they were doing was dangerous to the structure, the hierarchy of both political and economic power of their time, 100%. And it's every bit, when you look at it in the context of what happened with Stalin or something, with getting the brain trust of his country, the people who could threaten his power out of the way. So, get the smart people out of the way because they won't be able to threaten me. That is exactly what they did.
Yeah.
And I think it's so offensive to think about in that context.
And who knows what books they actually burned. It's like, bring me a pile of books from over there. There are no book. The books went in the truck, and they took off. They arrested this guy. He's like an outlaw, man. And,
I'm sorry, I got to put this out there before I forget. We talked about it maybe, but this context is so great because it's so appropriate. Turing.
Yeah.
Turing, from the Turing test.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know they castrated him? They took his balls away, dude.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because what he was thinking about was dangerous. Because here he was. He's a guy who decrypted the code of the Nazis, the Enigma machine, right? Mm-hmm. And actually did all this great stuff and built the very constructs we used to build artificial intelligence from today. That's his work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. He lived in a time which is kind of effed up. Ours, every time's effed up in some way. But in his case, it was they suspected him, but it was really truly admitted or not of being homosexual.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the treatment. They frickin' castrated the dude. Think about this. This is World War II era. This isn't something like way in the distant past.
I know. The thing is like this kind of stuff goes in the memory hole. It's like, how could we have ever thought of our country being the place that we think it is got to be a myth, because, a lot of the things, when I go back and look in history, stuff's never been okay, man. People have always been getting beaten by cops. It's been going on for a long time, man. Nothing's changing. Everything seems to be the same, except for now. We're almost at a point where they won't have to hit us with sticks anymore, because they can just use some of the technologies that we're talking about right here against us. Every single emotion has been measured. They know what frequency is anger, what frequency is happiness, euphoric, apathetic. But let's listen to this real quick. You ready?
One of the most important parts of Reich's story that has never been taken seriously is his laboratory science. And I think it's pretty clear that a very large amount of the barriers are not necessarily scientific.
Up in the lab, that's where we did our experimental work. And I was amazed by some of the stuff I was seeing.
The most important thing about Reich, in my opinion, was that he was a revolutionary physician.
From the very beginning, Reich thought that there was only one basic drive.
The apex of sexuality, it's the orgasm. Reich went there as a first.
Das Buch über den Orgasmus.
In 1927, he dedicated his book on the orgasm to his beloved teacher, Freud.
The term sexual politics basically originated with Reich.
He's also a pioneer of body therapy.
And Reich was the first person to introduce breathing into psychoanalytic therapy.
Nobody talks about breathing the way Reich talks about breathing.
Under the Nazis, no other psychoanalyst books and writings were banned to the extent that Reich's were.
Wilhelm Reich took a clear stand against fascism, and his name was on the Gestapo list.
dass so eine radikale Position
that he undertook such a radical position and paid for it at such great personal sacrifice has made him a role model for me to this day.
Für mich bis heute.
There was a lot of gossip about
He was thought of as kind of a quack.
Everybody was afraid of him in town.
They would call him a communist, they would call him a Nazi.
One of the things I remember hearing as a child was that he had a machine gun on the roof.
One gentleman actually asked me this. He said, is it true that when you work with the mice, you have to take off all your clothes and wear this sheer white uniform?
You know, I had made the prediction that if Reich goes to jail, he'll die there. I said it'll be like putting an eagle in a cage.
Wilhelm Reich and my parents did not think that he would lose that trial.
When I tell people that his books were burned, they said, where? In Europe? I said, no, in the United States.
As late as 1960, they were still after these books.
I do remember them coming to burn the books.
All these books were just thrown into the trough, and then this thing came down and grabbed them and threw them into the fire.
Reich was clearly a brilliant person who could see many things that other people.
There's nothing more terrifying than German metal.
Wir bilden einen lieben Reigen. Die Freiheit spielt auf allen Geigen. Musik kommt aus dem Weißen Haus.
And sometimes it's so poignant. So in America, you know, the stuff that we accuse other people of doing, we actually do, but you just never hear about it. You never heard about the rebel, the revolutionary. I think it's a lot cheaper to just hit you with some really good healing energy than it is to do an invasive surgery procedure. Wouldn't you say, Every Journeyman?
Sure.
You know, you can just go over there and just get a little bit of little buzz or whatever. Like, you know, for example, if you ever get sick or something happens to you and you got to go and get one of those MRIs or a PET scan where you're laying in there, you know, there's a bunch of stuff going on magnetically in that time. You know, what happens to your energy field when you go inside of one of those machines? One of those magnetic resonance machines.
Get degaussed.
Degaussed. It's like getting deloused.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, okay, so we talked about this in that show on Kev Baker 4 years ago. That's exactly exactly when I called in. We were talking about the magnetic anomaly device detection that submarine hunting planes used. Was the context, basically, and that these domains are in the human body that are magnetic domains. And that's in domains what they define how magnetic something is. These magnetic domains, and the more of them that are aligned, like in a straight line, the more magnetic field it has, and thus the more detectable it is. So for ships and submarines and stuff, when they leave port, they go through this degaussing range to distort that alignment and make them less detectable to magnetic detection. And this is why when people get struck by lightning, they're going to get struck by lightning again. not every time, but more likely than the average you and I or the audience would. Because what happens is when you get struck by lightning, if you survive the experience, it aligns your magnetic domains in your body, right? It becomes this linear thing. So now you're a walking lightning rod, literally walking around. And every time, that's what, remember National Geographic had that old guy with the hole in his hat? He was a ranger, like a park ranger, and so he was an old guy too. He survived. I don't know how old, man. He was got to be in his 80s in the picture. He got struck by lightning 7 times, because every time it got struck, they didn't know it at the time. He became more susceptible to being electrocuted. Not electrocuted. Electrocution means you die, but to be struck by lightning again, because it's more attractive, right? There's this antenna walking around out there.
Exactly. And so look, right at the top of your head, you got this bulbous container for your brain, at the top of your spine, and through that whole nerve endings and everything going through your body. Like, when you take a look at the human body, if the man or woman was standing there with their arms out and, hanging down at their side, and you were to take away the legs and the bones and everything and just had the brain and the spine and look at the nerves, you see, clearly your head is like the top of an antenna. When like if you ever had the old style radio antennas where you pull up the antenna, at the top there's a little bulbous thing. Well, your little bulbous thing on you is your head. And, you're like a radio transmitter. You're like a transistor radio on Earth. And you have your own frequency space on the dial. So like when somebody wants to tune in to the Epic Journeyman, they talk to you, boom, they're on your frequency, man. They're talking to you. Maybe someone's talking to you and you can't hear it because they're not on your frequency, but they're standing right next to you, right? Isn't this the concept of having an angel on your shoulder, man? Getting messages in your ear. You don't know why, but you turned left instead of turning right that day. And if you would have turned right, you would have got killed by that, runaway semi truck. What I'm saying?
Happened to people. Everybody we know in this audience and us here on the show has had something like that happen to themselves or someone that they know personally. My grandfather was he survived Pearl Harbor. He was walking to church that morning. The scene from Tora 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 where they hit the airfields. He was there. He was actually literally there. And when he survived that, he became a civil engineer in San Diego. And one day he'd taken just exactly what you just described. He was taking the same way to work every day. And one day, for whatever reason, he said, "Oh man, you know what? I'm just going to go this other way instead." When he made that turn, he got to work, and nobody. I don't remember the exact context, but it seems like other people were late, people weren't showing up because this is back in like the 60s at the time this happened. And he goes, and it turns out the reason everybody was late to work and some people didn't show up was there's this huge pileup the way he always drives. If he'd taken that turn, exactly that turn that we just talked about, he would have been exactly in that wreck. He killed a bunch of people. It was exactly the right time, exactly where he would have normally been, and only because on some weird whim, like the angel on your shoulder, just told him, "Yeah, I'm going to go this way today," right? And then nobody should. Yeah, exactly. So those kind of things. We talk about quantum entanglement and spirituality and the super spectrum we talked about last night, things like that. This is something that relates to that. And so going back to Turing a little bit, that horrible story about the poor man being castrated, he committed suicide after that. This brilliant man committed suicide because of that. And why wouldn't you? I can totally imagine why. I'm not saying suicide's a good thing, but I could see why I'd be depressed. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
so basically, but it occurred to me when after we mentioned it, we went to the next segment, that maybe they weren't trying to punish him. Like if you look at it from an esoteric perspective, rather, what they were trying to do was, the power of the eunuch, right? The power of the look at it from a that kind of sense, like a theosophical way, right, or alchemical way, to make him the gender neutral in the truest sense of the word, melding of the two energies. Because he had this incredible talent,
Right, I get it. I get what you're saying.
So they did it on purpose, like a test, right? In other words, he was a test subject. Here was this brilliant mind. They wanted the mind, and they wanted to escalate it and use it to its best potential. So maybe it wasn't punishment from their perspective. It was a test, but, poor guy killed himself.
Well, irrespective of his nuts being chopped off, what we are talking about right now is the energy that flows within us. It flows everywhere. And
that's what I was getting. Like, merging the positive and negative in like the magnetic sense.
Right.
Like the merging of the energies.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, magnetics, electromagnetics are, really the key to a lot of the technology that people think is there, but can't really say it is. Can't really prove it anymore. But, I mean, now you can, because, there's a lot of stuff that comes out. But, I think obviously the future is going to look a lot different than it looks now. But this technology is for some reason, the Tesla technology, the Reich, and then, the thing that happens, and it happens to me all the time, is I get the two conflated. It's like I get Royal Raymond Reich or whatever confused with Reich. But both of these guys, now, what do you know about Royal Raymond Reich? But before you tell me, we're almost at the bottom of the hour break, and I want to tell everybody on replay Thursday morning, tune in, turn on, and find out over at Aftermath FM. All the podcasts are there from all the great broadcasters here at Aftermath FM. They're there. They have commercials, but head on over there. You can catch the last 30 minutes of the show if you're interested in what we're doing. And hopefully you are, because we're about to talk about a whole other kind of non-invasive frequency manipulation that may be beneficial to mankind. And another person who was sort of, made to be, I don't know, man. Did you ever hear of this guy? Royal Raymond Reich? It's Aftermath FM, 10:30 Pacific, immediately following Clyde Lewis, Monday through Friday, right here. We'll be back momentarily, as soon as we can find that cavitation point to rip a hole in time and space and come back right here on Aftermath FM in stereo. Aftermath FM.
When your doctor tells you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendivite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendivite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendivite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendivite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
On June 1st, 1996, John and Joyce Edmonds purchased a ranch in Rainbow Valley, Arizona. What has ensued for the past 2+ decades defies all accepted understanding of our reality. Portals, aliens, abductions, incursions, and life-threatening confrontations. Stardust Ranch has become one of the most compelling paranormal stories of the last quarter century, studied by multiple agencies, public and private, and featured on countless documentaries, including Ghost Hunters. Stardust Ranch remains one of the most compelling mysteries of our time. Get your copy of Stardust Ranch, The Incredible True Story, available exclusively on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover.
You want to tell me what this is all about?
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Cause I've been blasting and laughing so long that even my mama thinks that my mind is gone. But I ain't never crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Me be treated like a punk, you know that's unheard of. You better watch how you're talking and where you're walking, or you and your homies might be lined in chalk. I really hate the trip, but I gotta low. As they croak, I see myself in the pistol smoke. Fool, I'm the kind of G the little homies wanna be like, on my knees in the night, saying prayers in the street light.
My name's Jimmy. It's Aftermath FM.
Look at the situation they got me facing. I can't live a normal life. I was raised by the state, so I gotta be down with the hood team. Too much television watching got me chasing dreams. I'm an educated fool with money on my mind. Got my 10 in my hand and a gleam in my eye. I'm a loped out gangster, set tripping banker, and my homies is down, so don't arouse my anger. Fool, death ain't nothing but a heartbeat away. I'm living life, do or die. What can I say? I'm 23 now, but will I live to see 24? The way things are going, I don't know. Tell me why.
Epic Journey. Are you there?
I'm turning butter over here.
You living in a gangster's paradise over there in
Amish paradise.
Maui.
Yeah, totally. But you know the thing is, what's there's one thing I love about that song. I actually like the arrangements. Arranged really well.
Mm-hmm.
But I also love it because it's the DX500 digital rhythm machine programmer from Roland that made that song, and I can reproduce it almost perfectly.
Well, you know what I like about that song? I like Michelle Pfeiffer because she's in that movie.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that was back in the day when she had it going on back then. But I think she married that guy. What's that guy's name? Fish. They call him Fisher. He used to hang out with Craig Sheffer. I can't. I think his name is something.
Remember.
Yeah. He's not the guy that you would think she would be married to, but she was, and it maybe still is. Who knows? I don't know. But we during this pandemic, at one point we had to censor ourselves over here at in the microcosm, and so Michelle Pfeiffer was the word that we used to use to secretly talk about the injectable. So that's the only reason I'm sort of bringing it up, because she was in this video. Mom's Jimmy in the microcosm. We're dissecting the Gangster's Paradise video from Coolio. And what was the name of that movie that she was in where she was the teacher?
Dangerous Minds. That's why I thought it was appropriate to play that song. So I mentioned the phrase "Dangerous Minds" earlier, and that's exactly right. That's the theme song from that movie.
There you go. Let's see, you never
Reich
know.
and Reich are dangerous minds, as was Tesla and are these other people that are getting censored out of our existence right now.
That's right.
And I think that talking about censorship, we finally got to the point where it's so obvious we can go ahead and talk about vaccinations and stuff now, because what the hell kind of world are we living in the United States where you can't say a word? You know what I mean? I mean, it was so ridiculous.
The same world you're living in where they bust and they kick your fucking door in for discovering the energy that surrounds us everywhere, and being able to use it in a healing way for people to heal them, and from a medical standpoint, from a psychological standpoint, and just from a standpoint of you being able to walk around the earth, like you're supposed to, feeling nice and feeling good, in tune with everything, and feeling it. You got your we've talked about it before, as the hairs on your body and your hair on your head.
Sensory antennas.
Yeah, it picks up these subtle energies. This is why Native Americans, obviously they didn't have scissors or barbershops, but if you just look across the world, man, you see there's lots of long hair. For example, Sikhs, they weave their beard and shit up underneath their hats. And there's all kinds of hair and stuff up under there. You can't see it. They look all tight, like their beard looks all trimmed and everything, but it's all like woven back up and goes up their, sideburns and up under their hat and stuff. So having long hair, from a shamanic experience, you pick up on, that's why you see it's, what's the first thing they do to you, man, when they put you in the military?
Cut off your hair. When you go into prison, that's the first thing they do. Cut off your hair.
That's right.
Yeah. When you go into internment camp, when you go to extermination camp, or what do you want to call it at the time, right? That's exactly what they do. They take your hair away.
What's the first thing they did to the Native Americans when they fucking, took their children away and put them in them schools?
Well, even on the warpath, right? The supposed scalping of the enemy, you're taking their hair.
Exactly, but I'm just saying, first thing they did to the Native American men were cuts their hair. That's it. Subtle energy is all around us. It's been known, and this is the information that was passed from lip to ear. This is the kind of the secret technology that exists, that whole secret societies are built around. The knowing of this information is the wielding of the power of the universe. So obviously, you can't have some wacky guy out there in the desert making it rain and cloud busting and healing people. Now, what about this other guy that gets conflated, that I always conflate these two? Royal Raymond Reich and his technology, Epic Journeyman. What about Reich, Royal Raymond?
Yeah, what he did was he invented a science, what they call pseudoscience, like same with Reich, pseudoscience, as they call it, right? Called radionics. And the idea was very much like the guy was describing, the hydrogen being burnt in the water, seawater, right? Through this use of frequency to achieve that effect. And so what he stumbled upon was that it was frequencies that could target specific parts and elements within any matter, whether it be the human body or anywhere, right? And so he made this idea that if you want to beat a disease or a cancer or anything like that, the way that you can do it is to find it. It's almost like the idea of resonant frequencies, but not quite. It's a little more all-encompassing than that. Like, it's not so finely targeted, like it's 14.33 hertz or whatever. It's not quite like that. The idea is that, but you can overwhelm it with things that it can't survive in, but the normal healthy cells can. Almost like looking at it in the sense, and this is where I think that the people of the time didn't have we're more able to use terms like this than they were then. So New Agey terms or mystical terms or spiritual terms, and they could use back in their day. So we could say something like it resonated with the positive, regenerative aspects of our being, right? Well, they couldn't say that back then, but that's what he was doing, right? So that was the idea. Or it could be something like, well, we harmonized the body's positive energy. Well, that makes perfect sense to me. I was a submarine sonar tech. I know all about harmonics and amplifying of energies and things like that. That's exactly how that works, right? Mm-hmm. But you couldn't say that back in his time, So and because Reich and people like that couldn't say the things that they were actually trying to do, it made them susceptible to the naysayers having a whisper campaign, if not overt campaign, against their, in the case of Reich especially, their work, right? Like, oh, they're just quacks. You know what they're saying. I know what they're saying. If we both don't know, he must be an idiot, you know. But that's what they did to him, and it's wrong. But what he did was actually pretty novel and pretty well thought out. It was pretty. It's gonna pan out in the future, I think, absolutely, because it panned out then.
Well,
you know what I mean? It's not because we discovered something new. He already was kind of onto it.
So we've done work on the gateway document or the gateway process, and one of the document that explains the process. One of the things it says in there about frequencies and human beings is that the human being will tune itself to the most dominant frequency available. So you can go from an alpha state to a beta state, so on and so forth. So all the emotions have been measured, and we know what frequency the human being will harmonize with that frequency. So if I put out a happy frequency, everybody will be happy. You know, if I put out a sad frequency, everybody will be sad. If I put out an apathetic frequency, everyone will be apathetic. And there is absolutely no debating that. That's just straight up. So,
the best example I've heard you use, I mean, you've done a lot of great examples over the years, obviously, but I think the one that stands out in respect to this is like we talk about people all of a sudden they're listening to the driving music. In this case, it's a metaphor for psychic driving, right? Where the beat boom, 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 boom. Next thing you know, people are bobbing their heads in rhythm with that beat, right? And it's totally involuntary. They're not doing it on purpose. They're just being compelled to do it, right? Because they're caught up in the moment, and it's driving them, right, to do that. And so that is exactly the technology that was being used. And the things we think of as exotic technologies today that really capture the mind and manipulate people were done through music initially, and then through things we did shows on moire patterns, things like that. I mean, analog technologies. They aren't digital. They aren't done over social media. They were done with a record album, a concert, and a light show you saw.
The other thing is too, if you take it down to the level of magic, if you're one of the people that believe in esoteric adventures going on behind music and all what's going on with it, then just say whatever is being said in the lyrics of a song. Let's say that could be energy. Okay, that makes you feel a certain way. Okay, so you're feeling a certain way when you're listening to a certain lyric, and there's a beat going on there. So when you're hearing that lyric, if that lyric is casting a spell or putting energy out with intention behind the emotional value that it has with you as a resonating device on the network, and it gets you shaking your head, you're bobbing your head, yes, up and down, yes, you're saying yes to it. Okay, it's just like when you hear people say they have to get you to agree to it before they could do it to you, that kind of thing. So this is kind of the same thing, because it's making you bob your head up and down and say yes to something. Let's say they're violent lyrics, super negative, or whatever. So this is like you're a rat on a wheel, and you're a loose device, and you could just be milked at any time by these different emotional aspects of what you're able to propagate as a like I said earlier, a radio device on the plane here in America in 2021. Another rebel was Tesla. Take a listen to this.
To find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Nikola Tesla. Although modern scientists are just now beginning to understand this quote from Tesla, ancient civilizations around the world had known of the power of sound, frequency, and vibration for thousands of years. In the essence of all religions and spiritual teachings, we can find how the ancients used the power of the words. This power has been utilized in the forms of prayers for Christians and Muslims, mantras for Hindus and Buddhists, and chants for the shamanic traditions. All of this shows us how words and vibrations have an immense power, which the ancients often utilized for many purposes. In this video, we'll examine not only the ancient practices, but also the scientific findings of the power of vibrations, how scientists are currently using vibrations and frequencies to alter and reprogram the DNA of living beings, and how the Tibetans used sound for levitating and transporting heavy stones. Of course, we'll also tell you how to use this wisdom for self-improvement so that you can live a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life. Let me share with you an interesting phenomenon you've probably heard of or experienced before. This phenomenon precisely demonstrates how powerful sound and vibrations are. When I was a kid, I remember that moving my fingers around the wine glass was strangely making a very high-pitched sound, and I was really surprised by it. But what happened as I kept making that sound was that the glass suddenly broke, and that made me even more curious. What I believed to be magic back then, now I understand through science. This unusual phenomenon is called resonant frequency. Every molecule and atom in this universe is vibrating at a particular frequency. Resonance frequency would be considered the specific frequency of that specific object or atom. Once you know the resonance frequency or specific frequency of an object or an atom, you can amplify its waves, making it so big that eventually it will break or destroy the object. That's what happens when we stimulate the wine glass with the frequency that matches its resonance frequency. Using the same principle, in 1938, a scientist named Dr. Royal Raymond Reich cured 16 terminally ill cancer patients. We have an exclusive video for the story and the discoveries of Dr. Royal Reich, which you can watch by clicking the link in the comments below. Long story short, Dr. Royal Reich designed a healing device using only electromagnetic frequencies to target and destroy any disease. This discovery should have completely changed the medical industry, but for unknown reasons, this information has been suppressed by the mainstream media and by Big Pharma. Although a massive campaign of suppression was conducted, many other scientists confirmed Reich's discovery by testing his frequency healing device. The result was the elimination of 60% of cancer cells from patients only through the power of resonant frequencies. Although the FDA made sure everything from this healing technology was destroyed, recently a professor of music by the name of Anthony Holland, who is also a composer, was always interested in the physical effects of sound, so he decided to assemble a lab to examine the effects of audio frequencies on microbiology. Dr. Holland created a non-profit organization for this purpose and began his experiments with harmless microorganisms like paramecium. What he discovered was that just like the wine glass, a particular combination of two related frequencies would completely shatter the targeted cells. After this experiment, he went out to find out the frequencies that could break cancer cells. After a year of research, just like Royal Reich, he found out the frequencies to combat pancreatic cancer and leukemia cells. In various experiments, he said,
It's time. It's time for us to bust in here while I let this sneaky bastard play their commercials. Epic Journeyman. Now, come on, man. Listen. Let's just be frank. I mean, how many millions of dollars have we spent on going to the hospital for cancer? I mean, it cost over $1 million to keep me alive when I had cancer. So I'm the $1 million man or whatever. But I'm just saying, I mean, so much money goes into the for-profit health industry, so I can see exactly why these guys and everything they had to offer humanity, why humanity's in the state that it's in. I mean, what if you, I mean, at this point, I mean, I've heard about these, you know, and the thing is, it's the 17th letter of the alphabet. People have talked about these beds. And so the problem is that if I talk about it, it's not, I'm not a follower of that, but have you heard about these med beds, these healing beds that you can just lay in and, you know, you come out all healed out? I mean, I'm just saying, kind of like a tanning bed, you know, you go lay in it and there's bulbs in there.
From Elysium, that was the whole thing in Elysium. They had that laying bed up on the orbiting satellite you can go to, and you never die because it would heal you.
Okay, sweet. I didn't see it and I didn't read it, but I didn't know anything about it. But I'm just, you know, I'm so maybe that's where it came from. I don't know, but it makes sense to me because in this box idea here, right? So you have this box idea, and then earlier we were talking about sonoluminescence. And then sounds to me like I can generate a frequency based on maybe the color of light or spectrum that I'm using, and have bulbs like that, like in a bed that I could lay in, and then say there's a whole spectrum of healing frequencies that you could just get blasted with that just, you know, maybe this is what the Russia technology is doing, man. So I don't know. We're gonna have to have Angela come back again and talk about it. She's kicking around, but I didn't want to put her on the spot and bring her on the show tonight. But we're definitely gonna have to have her back to talk more about it. So let's continue on. Unless you have something you wanted to break in with, let's continue on with some of this here. Send to the microcosm. We're talking about energy, frequency, healing, and why these rebels were suppressed. Here we go.
Cases of using sound to achieve healing and supernatural results can be found in almost all ancient civilizations. Even today, shamans use different instruments and rituals for different healing purposes. In a shamanic healer's toolkit, the most used and essential healing agent is the Icaros, a sacred song sung by the doctor to the patient to stimulate the natural well-being and health of the patient. This song is also used in spiritual practices with ayahuasca. Now that you understand the concept of resonance frequency, this will enlighten your understanding of the power of mantras, specific instruments, and sound-based rituals performed by ancient civilizations. They are not some voodoo tricks. They are pure science used by the ancients. Besides the applications of this knowledge for healing, there is also evidence of how the ancients used sound, vibrations, and frequencies to carve and levitate heavy stones and objects and use them to build megalithic structures. It's believed the Egyptians had a device that could be tuned to a specific frequency, and with it, they were able to cut massive stones just as if they were cutting butter. If you don't believe such technology could exist, just look at the Al-Nasla rock formation located in Taima Oasis, Saudi Arabia, or the Puma Punku complex with dozens of stones all cut with laser-like precision. In 1939, a Swedish doctor called Dr. Jarl was brought to a Tibetan monastery to treat a High Lama. He stayed a long time at the monastery and became a close friend of the Tibetans. One day, the monks took him to a cliff where they were constructing a rock wall. As soon as they found a big stone that needed to be moved, 19 musical instruments were set in an arc, precisely 63 meters from the stone. There were 13 drums of different sizes and 6 trumpets, each of which was 3 meters in length. The monks started to play the instruments, and they all chanted a specific mantra. After 4 minutes, miraculously, the stone began to sway, and suddenly it took off in the direction of the cliff, and after 3 minutes of ascent, it landed on the top of the cliff. Dr. Jarl claimed that the monks were able to move 5 to 6 stones per hour using this method. He made 2 videos clearly recording this incident, but they were both confiscated by his employers as soon as he came back. In 2015, a device built by a team from Spain successfully levitated and manipulated small objects with just sound. And here's an interesting old video of an acoustic levitation device by Dr. David Deek. One other recent discovery made by scientists was how sound, frequencies, and vibrations have the power to program or reprogram our DNA. In 2011, the Russian biophysicist Peter Gurdjieff conducted several experiments modifying DNA using only sound and light frequencies. The experiment was outstanding. He and his team successfully transformed frog embryos to salamander embryos simply by transmitting the DNA information patterns through frequency alone. In today's science, there is a term called junk DNA, which basically tells us that 97% of our DNA is useless and has absolutely no purpose. But could nature be so inefficient? I don't think so. This so-called junk DNA could be the key to unlocking our full potential and activating not only self-healing, but many other abilities that are considered supernatural. By now, you're probably wondering how you can use the power of sound and frequency to improve your health, happiness, and your entire being. So without further ado, here are some tips you can use in your daily life. Tip number 1. Start using affirmations with 432 or 528 Hz music in the background. As explained in this video, thoughts and words, especially the vibration from them, are extremely powerful. When I say the vibration from words, I refer to the intention behind them. The intention is what will give power to your affirmations. For example, imagine 2 scenarios. In both scenarios, you will be affirming, "I am truly grateful for everything in my life." But on one case, you genuinely believe it, and on the other case, you actually can't feel it as being true.
Awake.
My name is Jimmy. We're out of time.
From your hair, my pretty child, my sweet one. Choose the day and choose the sign of your day, the day's divinity. First thing you see.
It's aftermathfm. We'll see you tomorrow night.
A vast radiant.
And remember, you're not alone. And don't give up. And one more thing. Good enough just the way you are.
And we laugh like soft, mad children, smug in the woolly cotton brains of infancy. The music and voices are all around us. Choose, they croon, the ancient ones, the time has come again. Choose now, they croon, beneath the moon, beside an ancient lake. Enter again the sweet forest, enter the hot dream, come with us. Everything is broken up in dances.
Passing sleeping cities, fading by degrees, not believing all I see to be so. I'm flying over backyards, country homes and ranches, watching life between the branches below. And it's hard to say who you are these days, but you run on anyway, don't you, baby? You keep running for another place to find that saving grace. I'm moving on alone over ground that no one owns, past statues that atone for my sins. There's a guard on every door and a drink on every floor, overflowing with 1,000 amens. And it's hard to say who you are these days, but you run on anyway, don't you, baby? I've got another confession to make. I'm your fool. Everyone's got the chains to break, holding you. Were you born to resist or be abused? Is someone getting the best, the best, the best, the best of you? Is someone getting the best, the best, the best, the best of you?
See you tomorrow night.
Are you going on to someone new? I needed somewhere to hang my head without your news. You gave me something that I didn't have, but had no use. I was too weak to give in, too strong to lose. My heart is under arrest again, but I break loose. My head is giving me life or death, but I can't choose. I swear I'll never give in, I refuse. Is someone getting the best, the best, the best, the best of you? Is someone getting the best, the best, the best, the best of you? Has someone taken your faith? It's real, the pain you feel, you trust, you must confess. Is someone getting the best, the best, the best, the best of you?
All right, we're clear from the network. Epic Journeyman, do you want to hang out for a minute?
I actually have a few minutes tonight. Not like last night. I stayed really long. Actually,
All right,
'cause
we'll just take a
doctors
quick
and stuff.
break.
But
let's.
I don't have to work tomorrow because for the first time in like my entire, I won't say the first time, but almost first time in my entire working career, I have Veterans Day off.
Nice. All right.
And as a veteran, it just cracks me up. It took this long.
Stand by.
Send in your skeletons, sing as their bones come marching in again. They need you buried deep, the secrets that you keep are at the ready. Are you ready? I'm finished making sense, done bleeding ignorance that hope. soul for sale. Oh well. The page is out of print. We are not permanent. Temporary. Same old story. What if I say I'm not like the others? What if I say I'm not just another one of your place? You're the pretender. What if I say that I'll never surrender? What if I say I'm not like the others? What if I say I'm not just another one of your place? You're the pretender. What if I say I will never surrender?
All right, man, I'm back. I was floating. I had to go check the perimeter, make sure everything was under control. So I guess he's probably off checking the perimeter himself. So all right, man. Well, there it was. That's the show for tonight, man. How'd you guys feel about it? I thought it was good. We really didn't. Like we said, we didn't have a plan when we got here. So, well, we sort of had a plan, but that's it. Oh, let's see. All right, well, honestly, I don't know where Epic is, but I'm ready to GTFO, man. I need to eat. I'm starving. I need to go take care of my dogger, too. So, you guys, what are you guys up? Good? Everybody good? All right. Well, let's do this. I'm just going to GTFO right now and just go because I'm going to go get something to eat. And you guys, thanks for being here. I really appreciate everybody being here. Let me see here. I'll find something to play here on my way.
I found my way back. I had to check the perimeter.
Yeah. Well, hey, Cecilia, thank you for being here. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's clear. Look at these guys. These are non-invasive ways of healing. So I was just saying, I'm ready to GTFO, man. I'm starving, like Marvin. So
right on.
I know you got.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, no, I only had 3 hours sleep because I stayed up late last night, right? Because I was going to send you this VR headset. I want to make sure you're set up for it. So. Jesus.
Yeah, no,
I think you're going to be pleased. Now the thing is, for you guys who want to get involved with we're going to do this, So we'll host a room. And the thing is, we'll be able to hopefully stream it so you guys can see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be able to be.
So it'll be cartoony for you guys. It won't be 3D like it is for us, right? And Jimmy's going to have the Quest, which is a onboard headset with a processor on the headset. So it won't be the fantastical like 8K display I see. But it'll still be really good. Don't get me wrong, right?
You know what you should do is there a way for you to pipe me what you see, the video of it, and then I can put it out on YouTube as a screen? So you could like share screen or something in Skype, and then I can take that and use that screen and put it out over. Yeah, we are, man. We are going to do a VR chat, man. We're gonna do it, man. He's sending the equipment, so it's gonna happen soon. Thanks for
Rio too. I have I used to have 11 headsets. Now I'm down to 9. But yeah, so I have the extra headsets. So I have them.
So Rio's gonna get hooked up too as soon as we can hook him up. So, but thanks for being here, Cecilia. We appreciate it. And thanks for there's Angela still here. S90's here. Amelia's here. Wanda's here. There's a bunch of people. Luna's here. Robin, thank you, Robin. Everybody's here hanging out. So we got like 30 people here, but it's been a long day for me. And I mean, I got nothing really. I mean, if I hung out, I could hang out for like 30 minutes. You could hang out here if you had something you wanted to get into, and I'll let you roll for a minute here. Let me go next door here, outside here, and just take a walk. So I got to walk it off. After one of these shows. You know what I mean? It's like I gotta, get my energy back. I gotta go put my feet on the ground and get my energy flowing into my.
Well, that was a really good show, actually. I mean, it's rare that I know at the time. I compare this to being a musician, right? And I'm not a professional musician, but you know when you play something good, you know what I mean? And to me, this was a good show. I mean, I really felt like we really had that going tonight. And the irony here is, I use that word way too often, but the irony is we didn't plan it at all. We had nothing. We're like, what are we going to talk about tonight? I don't even know what we're going to talk about tonight. It just came together, right? And when it comes together like that, and people appreciate it, and we were caught up in it as well, just like the people listening, that's what makes this kind of special, right? Like this kind of interaction is something that, for all the world being a messed up place, it's not when something like this can happen. So thank you all for being here, and I really appreciate it. And I think we all do. Yeah, and it's awesome, man. It's great that we can all be part of it.
Well, let me ask you this question: how long were we number 5? Because when I looked, we were number 5.
We were number 5 for a long time, actually. Definitely since the second hour.
All the way to the second hour, or
sorry, from the second hour on. Where are we now?
Oh, I don't know. We're not on there now. We're gone.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Well, so last I had was still number 5.
I know. So when I looked,
we held it for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, they could be promoting that spot. I don't know. From TalkStream, who knows how the
well, I just know this. I know this.
So to speak, but
for the last 6 months, we've never made it onto the first page, and then all of a sudden, 2 weeks ago, we started making it onto the first page and being in the top 6 every night for late night. We're kicking John B. Wells' ass. And we're up there, and it's Clyde, George Norrie, us, some other network, X something. I don't know where they came from. They're kind of new, but
we're beating Fox News. That's what I love.
Yeah, man.
And what I love more though? I love more is we're beating frickin' the War Room with Steve Bannon.
Dude.
Look, man, this is a guy that I would actually appreciate talking to and having a beer with. I really would. He is that kind of guy. He is the kind of guy that I would appreciate having a beer with. Honestly, if I met him in a bar, I would definitely talk to the guy. But the thing is, he's so evil, man. He is so evil. And we've done so much research on him, and it's like, why is this guy? Why is that not in jail? Is what I want to know. Like, he really belongs there. But the fact we can at least beat him is a good thing.
Well, I bet you John B. Wells, he comes over and listens to our show, and then he goes over there and plays music and seems cool because he's playing. He hears songs over here, and he goes back over there and plays them on his show. And then he goes, "Yeah, my name's John B. Wells. It's all straight talk. Give me a call or whatever. It's John B. Wells." John B. Wells was all up Q's asshole, man. Okay, so John B. Wells was a believer in Q, fucking hook, line, and sinker. Okay, only up until a certain point, and then he had to part ways from that belief system, whatever. So I mean,
yeah. I want to interject on this one about Steve Bannon. Like, I want people to really, really understand. If they don't know already from listening to our show, if this happened to drop in tonight, we talk about medic engineering. We talk about manipulating social media. We talk about Cambridge Analytica. That's who we're talking about. That is this guy. I mean, people who aren't tuned in yet, that don't know that, they really need to know that context. Like, this is the person almost singularly, responsible for the entire thing. He is the guy who hijacked the alt-right movement and moved it, the Overton window, farther to the right. That is Steve Bannon. So he's a spook. He's absolutely a spook. We showed that. I proved that on another show we did. But anyway, without representing the show, I can just say that look, man, this is what we're talking about. And so, well, from a humanistic standpoint, I definitely love to drink a beer with the guy, 100%. The guy is an interesting character. Did you know? I mean, he worked with frickin' Sean Penn and made those movies with them. He did Biodome, Biosphere 2 in Arizona. He was married to the girl who's a descendant of the Jean-Luc Picard character's family that went up in the balloon and went down to Marianas Trench. The Picard family, that was his wife. I mean, dude, the guy's a fascinating character. So let's not degrade him for being a fascinating character. However, frickin' evil, dude. Whether he's deliberately evil or not, he is an adherent to traditionalism.
He can just, we're not even doing the same thing. Okay, what he does is he comes on the radio and talks. What we do is show up with no show and create a show like that right there. 2.5
Right.
hours.
Exactly,
It's like a
100%.
fucking documentary off the top of our heads, man. In 2.5 hours, and we do it Monday through Friday, man, 10:30 Pacific. So I mean, all you got to do is let us know if there's something you want us to do a show on. You just tell us, man. We'll riff on something for you, whatever it is. And the more notice we get, the better. But I mean, we could riff on a show right now. I mean, we should do a show like that. We should do a show on, like, maybe on Friday night, where the audience just tells us, give us a show. We just go, give us a show idea. I say go, man, and we'll just.
Oh,
fucking-
I really like this concept, especially with the idea of having a VR room to go to as well. So think about this: how we could do. I've thought about what we're doing in the show. We could actually have a situation where if you join, it's only so many people who sit in a room, about 30 or whatever in a room, but it depends. But the idea being, you can be in the room and you can see the videos we're seeing in 3D, sit in the theater while we're talking about it, right? But we can dissect what we just talked about the show before. So when you call in, right, and give us something to rip off of, essentially, we're just making shit up. We have an opinion because we've researched what we're talking about. That sounds kind of terrible, actually, the way I said it that way. But I mean, it's not. We're generally just not making stuff up. Is my point. We have
Nah,
something
but
to-
it's. I mean,
so
it's
if we do that, and then you can go back and kind of dissect it and look back on the videos we were referencing or things like that, sitting in the theater in VR. How cool would that be? Do you want to be part of that? I think you guys would. I would do it, and I'm a VR guy. It's freaking fun as heck. Imagine how
Dude,
cool that'd be.
It's like the art of information, man. I mean, we could just literally create something right there on the spot, man. I think we should do it Friday. I think we're going to gear up for that. Maybe the first hour, what we'll do, because Rock and Rio will be there with Reverse Perverse. So maybe, oh yeah, man, me and John go way back. I was the first show that John did, Chuck. Me and John are buddies. We buddied up because of the CMP, because he was the only person that I heard out there at any point other than Josh Reeves talking about the CNP. So that's a dangerous thing to talk about, especially in the alternative media, if you want to get any kind of basis of having a giant audience. If you go against the CNP, you'll be over there in the weeds for the rest of your life, like Josh Reeves. He's always having issues, man. Some certain people that do broadcasts, they take a beating until they stop broadcasting. If you get off the air, everything in your life that goes bad will all of a sudden go back and go good. Man, and some people, it depends on what you say, and how many people are listening. That's the main thing, eh? So John and I are bros, man. John is like a really, really a bro, Chuck. And I mean, I tell you right now, John is 100% real. He's somebody that I totally trust, man. I trust John 100%. So he's a bruh. I'd do anything for John, man. If John needed me to come there, I'd get there and help him out. Whatever he needed, I'd do. He's a bro. So you guys should support him. He does a lot of good work. He tackles subjects and issues. I don't grind that axe, man. There's certain axes that I don't grind because I don't want to make myself have to listen to it or go through it or look at it. I know it exists. It's enough. I don't need to be beat over the head with it, and I don't like beating people over the head with it. But some stuff needs to be talked about, and there's plenty of people that do that. John's one of those people. So, he has specific issues that he is really, passionate about, and you just go over his channel and we read the documents and check it out. You'll see his work over there. Yeah, the VR will be cool. We'll be doing that. So listen, let's get the heck out, man. Because I gotta get something to eat, man. And I know I got a burger sitting at my house in the refrigerator. I just gotta go there and fry it up. I'm gonna put some. Have you ever heard? Did you know that there was British cheddar?
I think I do, actually.
It's white. I'm gonna tell you right now, man. British cheddar. If you've never had it, check it out. British cheddar.
Any guys ever go to Scotland or to now? Don't get me wrong. The Scottish people are gonna be mad at me for saying England, right? But either place, and get the fish and chips, dude. Dude and dudettes, get the fish and chips. Ignore all other food. Get the fish and chips, man. It's freaking fantastic.
Mm-hmm. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow, eh?